Today is World Menstrual Hygiene Day, and it's so wonderful to be with you on this day. You think, really? A day dedicated to menstrual hygiene? Why? Well, because menstrual hygiene is not only about menstrual pads or tampons or menstrual cups. It's not about a choice between a maxi pad or an eco-friendly pad or a disposable pad or a renewable pad. It's not about that. It's not about the medicines to take to deal with menstrual cramps or hot water bottles. It's not about that. It's not about the number of ounces of blood that come out of any random woman each month. It's actually a day that is right at the heart of women, of women's empowerment, of women's rights, of gender equality, of how as women, as girls, we think about ourselves. We think about our bodies, we think about our identities, and how the world responds to our womanhood, to our bodies, to ourselves. So you can think about it rather than just World Menstrual Hygiene Day. You can think about it as World Women's Empowerment Day. Women's equality, gender equality, Women's Upliftment Day. You can think about it as World Girls and Women Recognizing the presence of the divine within them Day. You can think about it as World Creation Day. Because of course, without menstruation, there couldn't be any creation. And so it's a very, very special global day. And there's so many beautiful aspects and elements to talk about. First of all, the taboo of menstruation. This idea that somehow इसके बारे में बात नहीं करना चाहिए, चुप रहना चाहिए, that we somehow should not be talking. Now is the time we must break the silence. We must end the taboos. And the reason for that is that as long as we are silent about menstruation, then we are silently complicit in our girls and our women suffering. Not suffering from menstruation itself. In most cases, menstruation itself is a beautiful process. But suffering from unnecessary illnesses, infections, simply due to not having the information or access to the products to keep themselves clean and hygienic during those days. But also suffering from this sense, because it is a taboo, that somehow there is something wrong, that it is something to be ashamed of, कि ये शर्म की बात है. लोग कहते हैं ये मेरा monthly illness या monthly problem. It is neither an illness nor a problem. Yes, उसको थोड़ा सा ध्यान देना है, संभालना है. It's just something we need to take care of, in the same way that we take care of so much else about our bodies. But this taboo around silence has created a situation where all over India, girls are staying home instead of going to school, missing critical days of their education, and ultimately, all too frequently, having to drop out of school. Simply because nobody has taught them how to take care of themselves, simply because they don't have the information or access to the products that would enable them to come to school while staying clean and hygienic, or because their schools don't have toilets, or the toilets don't have doors. And so there isn't a way that the girls can stay clean at school. This is violence. This is gender-based violence. You don't have to actually raise your fist against a woman for it to be gender-based violence. To deny our girls the right to education simply because we can't build toilets in schools, or simply because we can't put doors on the toilets in schools, or because we are embarrassed or ashamed or don't know how to talk about menstrual hygiene, or think कि वो गंदी बात है, बात नहीं करना चाहिए उसके बारे में. And so our girls are deprived of the information and education. That is gender-based violence. To create a situation where these girls must miss school every month and ultimately fall behind, and so many drop out. That is gender-based violence. To have our girls and women every month feel like there is something wrong with them, that they are somehow sick or tainted or dirty or impure. That is gender-based violence. Violence is not only to our physical bodies. Violence is to our minds and our hearts and our self-identities. So when we come together to end gender-based violence, it is incumbent upon us to ensure that menstrual hygiene, menstrual health, and ending the taboos, ending the silence, is also part of our commitment. I remember when I first came to India, I would hear other girls talking about, oh, I'm down. तो मैं तो psychology की background से आया हूँ. मुझे लगा कि I'm down का मतलब ही I'm depressed. मैं उदास हूँ. I'm sad. बाद में मैंने पता लगाया कि I'm down का मतलब I'm on my period. But शुरू में, before I knew that, I would say things to them like, oh, चलो मेरा साथ आरती करे, या चलो मेरा साथ मंदिर में. And they would say, नहीं, आरती में नहीं जा पाऊंगी, मंदिर में नहीं जा पाऊंगी, because I am down. So I was very confused, and I used to think, well, God, Arti is the best solution to depression, to frustration. Being in the mandir is the best solution to depression, sadness. But बाद में जब पता लगाया कि I'm down means I'm on my period, तो मैं खुद down हो गया. I became very upset. Because I'm down means there is something wrong with me. I am sad, I am depressed, I am miserable. मैं उदास हूँ. But our periods should not make us udas, should not make us sad, should not make us depressed. Yes, of course, kabhi there's a little bit of, sometimes for some women, pain in the abdomen. But there's ways to address that. Chahe goli se, chahe hot water bottle se, chahe vishram se, chahe kuch asan se. But that isn't something to make us down. In fact, the reason we menstruate, and all of my sisters, all of my daughters, my mothers, all of you, hear me very loudly, very clearly. We menstruate because the divine has incarnated through us with the power of creation When we think about creation, kisko mante hain? Lord Brahma, right? Lord Brahma is the creator. But iska matlab that Lord Brahma has given us that power of creation. Jahan menstruation nahi hota, creation nahi ho sakti. Apni shrishti, apni creation तब भी हो सकते हैं where there's menstruation. In the years before we start menstruating, जब हम छोटे बच्चे हैं, या in the years after menopause, when we're not menstruating, we cannot create. We can only create life when we menstruate. So menstruation and creation go hand in hand. इसका मतलब है कि चाहे थोड़ा सा पेट में दर्द हो कि नहीं है. When we menstruate, we must remember I am up, not I am down. I am up because flowing through me is that presence of the divine. I am up because flowing through me is the power of creation. That divine power of creation is in me. And so it's the time of month to remember. I am that mother goddess. I am that divine creator. Ye sharam ki baat nahi hai. Ye vardhan hai. This is a blessing. As we're here in the beautiful trees, the beautiful woods, think about, well, a seed begins, or a tree begins with a seed. Yes. But to take that seed and to turn it into a tree, that power of Mother Earth, चाहे हम प्रकृति कहते हैं, सृष्टि कहते हैं, शक्ति कहते हैं, it's all feminine. It is the power of that divine feminine. And that is where it is so important for us to remember this is a time of empowerment. And this is where we need to come together also more and more in sisterhood. As I see the trees, I remember how these trees stay standing. Not because each of them individually has roots that are so strong, but actually because the roots of these trees intersect just below the ground. And that intersection of the roots keeps them standing. That is what gives them the strength. And as trees, as women, let us remember that yes, of course, each of us stands tall, stands strong. We grow from our roots to the heights. But if we are going to be sustained, if we're going to be nourished, if we're going to be nurtured, the only way to do that is intersecting with the roots of others. And that is why we all must stay together so strongly in sisterhood. At this time of COVID, it's a time, especially in India right now, all over the world, but much of the world is looking at emerging from it, whereas India is still in the throes of it. It's a time where we feel depressed, we feel frustrated, we feel udas. And it's a time for us to actually look back for a moment. Interestingly, on this day of Menstrual Hygiene Day, to look at the metaphor of menstruation and creation. Because every child we give birth to sits in our womb for 9 months. And if you take that child out of the womb before 9 months, they can't usually survive. Certainly not much before 9 months, a few weeks, okay? But the earlier that child comes out of the womb, the weaker it is, the more susceptible to disease, to illness, to infection that child is. The longer that child can stay in the womb, the stronger and healthier that child is. And so you wouldn't say, come on, hurry up, get out. Kam ho gaya, chalo ek maine ho gaya, chalo bahar, niklo. We wouldn't say that because we understand, Nene, it takes 9 months. And in the same way, let us consider this time a gestation period in which we, the women of the world, are creating a new way of being, a new life, a new co-creation, one of interlinking, connection, interdependence, cooperation, togetherness, oneness, sustainability. That is the creation that as women we can bring into the world and which our world needs so badly. So as we are inside these days, in India we are inside. As we are inside, instead of being frustrated, instead of being anxious and concerned and worried, let us realize we are growing. We are growing new life. It has been conceived within us and it is growing. This beautiful new birth that finally, when things open, when this tragic pandemic dissipates, when finally we burst forth out of our homes, we will do so giving birth to a whole new way of being, which is one that is interlinked with each other, holding each other up. And of course, not only women, not exclusively women. This is for all. But I think in many ways, women are the ones who will really give birth to this, who will really nourish and nurture this. There tends to be something about women that is inclined, very specifically inclined toward nourishing and nurturing togetherness, oneness, cooperation. And so let us consciously nurture within ourselves whatever we need to through these days of meditation, through these days of prayer, through these days of coming together in satsang. Let us nourish and nurture this new birth growing within us so that we can bring it forth into the world. A world in which, like these trees, we stand individually strong, but interconnected, and recognizing that it is that interconnectedness that enables us to be strong. It is that interconnectedness that enables us all to be nourished and nurtured. And as we bring this out into the world, let us realize that Mother Earth, Mother Nature, along with all of our sisters and mothers and daughters in the world, that Mother Earth and Mother Nature are also us, and are also that divine feminine. And as we speak about gender equality and empowerment, well, that has to also be given to Mother Earth and to Mother Nature. And women are and have been throughout so much of history the protectors of the environment, the protectors of the earth, the carers of the earth. And so let us birth a new way of being that takes that power and uses it for sustenance, for sustainability, for peace, for love, for oneness.